Lesson 2-6 and Lesson 2-8, Multiplying and Dividing Integers. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to multiply and divide integers with the same sign, and you're going to be able to multiply and divide integers with different signs. Here's the first thing we're going to cover in this lesson, is we're going to cover the rules, the things that you need to remember in order to be successful with multiplying and dividing integers. The first rule is that when you're multiplying or dividing with different signs, the answer is always going to be negative. So in other words, if you have one positive and one negative, the answer is always going to be negative. The second rule you need to know is when you are multiplying or dividing with the same sign, so in other words, they're both positive or they're both going to be negative, your answer is always going to be positive. So if the signs are different, you're going to get a negative answer, and if the signs are the same, you're going to get a positive answer. Remember, this only applies for when you're multiplying or dividing. This does not apply to adding and subtracting. And just as a little warning, this is the number one thing that students get confused. They think that these two rules also apply to adding and subtracting integers. They don't. This is only for multiplying and dividing. So again, when you multiply or divide that have different signs, so one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, you get a negative answer. And when the signs are the same, like they're both positive or they're both negative, you're going to get a positive answer. So let's see if we can apply these two rules to some examples. Here's our first one. We have 3 times negative 5. Well, that means I have one positive and one negative. And let's flip back. If we have one positive and one negative, that means the signs are different. Our answer is going to be negative. So the very first thing that I do is I write that down. I write down negative. Now I'm going to worry about going back and actually doing the math. 3 times 5 is 15. So that means the answer is going to be negative 15. Let's take a look at this one. Here we have positive 24 divided by negative 16. That means we have two different signs. So let's go back right here. Different signs. One's positive and one's negative. That means our answer is going to be negative. Very first thing that I'm going to write down is that negative sign. Now I just need to go 24 divided by 6 is going to be negative 4. Let's try a couple more examples. Here I have negative 4 times negative 3. That means I have two negatives that I'm multiplying together. Let's see. Oh, right here. When you have two negative signs, or when the signs are the same, your answer is going to be positive. So that means our answer right here is going to be positive, which I don't need to write a little plus sign, a positive sign. Now I'm just going to do the math. 4 times 3 is 12. Here's another one. Negative 30 divided by negative 5. Let's see, the signs are the same here. Let's see if we can figure this out without going back. So when the signs are the same, that means our answer is going to be positive. So 30 divided by 5 is positive 6. And you don't need to write down that little positive sign in front of your answer. Here's the last two examples that we're going to do today. This first one has 3 numbers that we're multiplying together. And these rules right here apply no matter how many numbers you're multiplying or dividing together. What we do is we're going to multiply or divide 2 numbers together, and we're going to get an answer, and then we're going to take that answer and we're going to multiply it by the last number. So let's just worry about this first part. What's negative 3 times negative 4? Well, that means we have 2 numbers with the same sign, so that means our answer is going to be positive. So I'm not going to write anything down to remind me of that because I don't need to write down a positive sign. And 3 times 4 is 12. And now I'm just going to bring down everything else that we haven't done yet. Now I'm going to take a look at this, and I have 12 times negative 2. Well, when I have signs that I'm multiplying together that are opposite, so in other words, I have a positive 12 here and I have a negative 2 here, the positive and the negative are opposites, that means my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to write that down to remind me. And now I'm just going to go 12 times 2, and 12 times 2 is 24. And there's the answer. Negative 24 is the answer to what's negative 3 times negative 4 times negative 2. Remember, you're just going to do You're just going to multiply two numbers together and you're going to get your answer, and you're going to bring down the next one and you're going to multiply that one. We'd do the same thing if we had 4 or 5 or 6 numbers here. It doesn't matter how many numbers you're multiplying or dividing together, you're still going to do it the same way. Multiply or divide the first two, and then do the next one and the next one and the next one until you're done. Here's the last example that I'm going to do today. -4 to the second power. So since it's to the second power, remember that doesn't mean -4 times 2. That means -4 times itself 2 times. So let me write that down. -4 times -4. So when you multiply two negative numbers together, they have the same signs, so that means our answer is going to be positive. And 4 times 4 is 16. So that means -4 to the second power is 16. So that's how you apply these two rules for multiplying and dividing integers. Remember, if they have different signs, one's positive and one's negative, the answer is going to be negative. And if you're multiplying or dividing integers that have the same sign, like they're both negative or they're both positive, your answer is always going to be positive. And remember, these rules only apply for when you're multiplying or dividing integers.